All right, folks, welcome to Sportishness between weeks 14 and 15. This is the second pre-off, if you will, pre-off episode.
Pre-off.
We're trying to turn that into a drinking game.
Right.
So this week we got a couple changes going on. We're actually using some new hardware, new cameras, and also we're kind of changing the set design a little bit. So this week things are going to look a little different. We're also going to do a fairly short episode this week because Jonathan has a horrible toothache and can barely talk. So we're trying.
Well, I can always talk.
Yeah. So we're trying.
Making sense is the problem.
We're trying to keep this as short as possible. So let's jump right into it. So this week's first game was Denver-Oakland. It was a Thursday night game. Denver, I think, pretty much stomped Oakland. The score was closer than it probably was on the field. The only thing I really saw that I didn't, the running game was still in doubt, but our ability to convert in the red zone and convert third downs has been problematic all season. I think we saw more of that in this game.
Yeah, I thought the receiving core was looking kind of weak. Even the tight
the mandatory pick.
Yes,
we had the mandatory drops, 3 drops.
Right,
but.
And actually, I think that Moreno was playing like his job was on the line, which it is.
It is actually at this point, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean he reeled off a series of I thought were just flat brilliant runs.
Sure.
Taking what would have normally been a 3-yard gain and reeled off 9, 10, 12 yards. So
for me, the running game is still a problem. I mean, Reno can run if there's an opportunity for the team to pass out of the play. In other words, the line doesn't stack. If the line stacks against Marino, there was only one exception to this on the Thursday night game. They stuff him at the line or back. Every time they stick in Hillman, it's a guaranteed run. I think everybody's picked up on that now. So against Oakland,
there is really no mystery with the Denver run game. You're right. I mean, the run works best when they're playing out of a screen or like a play action or something. But they don't have any grinders. McGahee was the grinder, the guy that could force 3 or 4 yards against a run prevent defense. Sure.
So with Denver, basically we got the win we needed. This was the game that we had to stay in the hunt for the bye. That's great. So, but other factors had to happen. If we wanted to move it to the 2, New England had to lose. Baltimore had to lose. So let's jump into the game. So let's talk about the Texans-New England game. And I think off camera you said probably you summarized it the best. New England didn't just beat the Texans; they humiliated them.
Yeah,
they went out to destroy. They went out not just to win the game, but I think they went out to destroy how the Texans felt about themselves and their progress this year. And I think you're right. They're setting up for the playoffs.
Yeah, Belichick is a mastermind, right? So if you're going to make guesses about a mastermind, you got to be making mastermind guesses. So I'm thinking that Belichick knows or thinks it's probable that his team is going to be facing the Texans. Texans being the toughest AFC competition, and he wanted to set the tone in what's technically a meaningless game. I mean, meaningless in the sense that every game's important, but
both teams are going to the playoffs,
are going to the playoffs, and so he could force a kind of more aggressive play strategy.
Sure,
and he did, and I think basically when and if the Texans and the Patriots face off in the playoffs, the Texans are going to have to do a gut check because they're going to say, "Wow, we got mugged."
Yeah,
it was a cool, savage brutality like that scene in Reservoir Dogs with the guy slicing up the cop. I mean, it was awful.
It was an embarrassing and humiliating game for the Texans, and I think you're right. I think it's more of a mind game. Not that New England won't do that anytime they get a chance, but they didn't let up.
The other thing too is, my hat is off to Belichick for finding the most glaring weakness in what is a pretty good defense, which is, the safeties and the corners on the Texans just got exposed as really, with a good game plan to keep those guys spread out, and keep them, thinking about man coverage, or playing soft zone. I mean, they can get eaten alive. They're just not good enough.
And the Texans arguably have one of the harder remaining schedules. They've got Indianapolis twice,
right,
and the Vikes once. Both of those teams are playing for their playoff lives, the Colts especially, and the Vikes are playing in that tough NFC North division where there's a dogfight going on. No team in the NFC North can afford to lose a game and still be competitive at this point.
Yeah.
So New England only has really, in my mind, one tough game left, San Francisco.
Right.
And after that, I think it's easy street with Jacksonville, Miami, and then it's off to the playoffs. So we were hoping New England was going to lose.
Right.
They clearly did not lose at all. So we didn't bump up to the 2 spot like we were hoping. However, Baltimore played as well with Washington, and Washington has been playing their kind of pro college offense, and they ground out another win, doing that in that style. Let's just the play action run stuff that they do, and they beat Baltimore, and they actually made Baltimore look again pretty bad about it. This, I think, the second week in a row where they've made opponents look like they didn't know a game they were playing.
You know what? This time of year, a 2-game losing streak can only be viewed as a slide. I mean, you're playing for so much in this latter half, and really the latter quarter of the season, and for Baltimore to let 2 games get away from them really shows them to be quite vulnerable. Now, of course, I think they're going to be, coming out very, very hungry against Denver.
Yes.
Because they're looking at Denver to measure up against Denver in the same way Denver is looking to measure up against them.
I agree.
And so I think both teams can be expected to come with their A game. But the bottom line is Baltimore's looking like they could work their way almost out of the playoffs if it weren't for the fact that they look pretty solid in their division.
Yes, they had an early good start, and it's looking good. Yeah, so we've talked about this game for weeks. Where's Denver at? This weekend we're going to finally know.
We're going to finally know, yeah.
And you're right. We're actually catching them at the wrong time. 2-game losing streak. Suggs will be back, and possibly Ray Lewis as well. So they could be just completely energized. They're focused to win this game. They have to win this game, and they've got their star players back on the field.
I also think, too, that the way that the Browns are the week after that, am I correct?
They play the Giants and then...
no, I'm sorry, Denver.
Denver we got the Browns and then the Chiefs.
Right, okay. Well, I was thinking of the Browns as being a throwaway game, but the fact of the matter is they've been making a late-season surge. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that Denver can necessarily look at that one as a gimme either. So the issue here is that I think the Broncos now are looking at a really a much more difficult stretch than they were originally. I mean, the Kansas City game, anybody in their right mind is going to think that Denver's going to take that last game. But, with the Browns resurgent, with Baltimore proving that they can still, go to the playoffs with their heads up instead of on their backs, God only knows what's going to happen these next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So those are the top 4 teams. Those are so obviously we're playing for the bye.
Right.
With Baltimore losing and us winning, that puts us 1 game over them right now and gives us the clear number 3 spot. If we beat them...
Also gives us the tiebreaker if it comes down to it.
Exactly. If we beat them on Sunday, that gives us a 2-game and a tiebreaker. I'm pretty sure that we've locked up the 3.
Right.
But from the 4-game perspective, looking at the top 2 teams, trying to slide into one of the bye weeks, 1 or 2 slot. We've talked about this a lot off camera. We got to hope that New England stumbles somewhere.
Yes.
And they've got to stumble. The only place realistically we think that can happen is with San Francisco, who has looked good in the last couple games.
Yeah.
But after that, Jacksonville, Miami, I think they're going to roll. So again, for the playoff perspective, I think the 1, 2, and 3, 4 spots are locked up after this week.
Well, let's hope. For our sake, for the 49ers' sake, for that, Belichick blew his wad on the Texans game.
So.
Because, but you know what? There's a possibility. There's something about Jim Harbaugh. Even though of course, we ripped him pretty hard last week. He still is a pretty surprising coach. In fact, I was, paying attention to a number of pundits who were saying, that him demoting Smith and promoting Kaepernick was kind of one of his kind of wild, crazy, on the fly moves. So maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve. Maybe he's got a game plan that he doesn't even know is a game plan until he throws it into action in game, which ruins Belichick's day.
And we talked about this before too, last week, that neither of us thinks that the NFC is terribly competitive the best NFC teams are terribly competitive with the best AFC teams.
Yeah.
So for the Giants, not the San Francisco Giants,
right.
San Francisco 49ers, for the 49ers, this is a real chance to test themselves, to see where they are if they do get to the big game. If it's another disastrous blowout, well, all of a sudden New England starts looking great, almost unstoppable. So Denver, like we already talked about, has basically this Baltimore game is their last tough game. In theory, the Browns, they're playing tough, but hopefully we'll win that one. After the 4th spot, well, things got to be a mess again. Both the Colts won, but Pittsburgh and Cincinnati lost. So it's turned the 5-6 seed thing into kind of a mess where the Jets are actually back in it with a win. So the Colts at this point
don't even know what to say about that, boy, because never has there been a team who didn't deserve even to be looking at the backside of a playoff ticket.
Well, and so the Colts are looking pretty strong with a 9-4 record right now.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to be the 5 seed unless but again, they do have Houston twice. So if Houston picks up its pride and beats them twice, then that could be in jeopardy. But they look pretty strong in the 5 seed. But the 6 seed, Pittsburgh, the Bengals, or the Jets. And you're right, the Jets don't deserve it. I don't really think Pittsburgh does. I thought Cincinnati blew a real opportunity against Dallas last week. I knew it was going to be a tough game, but I thought they should have taken that one home.
Now, am I correct in thinking that if the Colts get on a hot streak and beat Houston twice, that could deliver the 2nd seed to Denver? By virtue of the Texans,
New England moving up to the 1st, and us, yes, definitely. There's still a lot. Yeah,
go Colts,
go Colts. So that's kind of a backdoor way into it. So we'll see. I'm not sure how the Texans are going to react. It's going to. I think this if it's a close game or close game either way, win or loss, I think the Texans are still a football team. If they host the Colts and they get blown out again, well, Belichick may have destroyed them as a unit for the season.
Yeah.
Besides that, not a lot of changes in the AFC because of all the bottom seed losses. So the only change is that Baltimore and Denver swapped 3 and 4. We're in 3, and they're in 4 now.
And the undeserving Jets are even threatening.
Yes, they're back in it now. Let's see. The Jets schedule is Tennessee, San Diego, and Buffalo. None of those teams are particularly tough right now. Now, of course, it's the any given Sunday thing, which we'll talk about probably actually right after this with the Falcons. But the Jets could get in. I don't think they have any tough games. Pittsburgh has Dallas, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. I think Cincinnati's going to be a challenge because they're basically fighting for a seed. Cincinnati has Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. So Cincinnati has definitely of the 3 teams, Cincinnati has the toughest road to hoe. Pittsburgh has the middle, and the Jets easiest.
Yeah.
So it's possible they could slide in just by virtue of a schedule. Go Tebow. NFC.
Did you say Tebow or TiVo? Go TiVo.
Go
because
TiVo.
I want to fast forward through that Jets playoffs game if it happens.
9-6. If we're lucky. At the NFC. So the NFC was, as it's been all season, has been a bit of a mess. So the Falcons, a strong 1 seed right now, go to play the hapless Carolina Panthers.
And get their butts handed to them.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I don't understand that. Now, everybody's been talking, we've talked about it, or you've talked more about it than me, that said that, hey, Carolina's kind of a paper tiger. I'm sorry, not Carolina, Atlanta. And they have had a pretty easy schedule.
Yeah.
Actually, ridiculously easy in this last 2/3 of the season. When you lose to the Panthers, and you don't just lose by a touchdown, you just don't let them hang around. They kick the last-second field goal. They convincingly stomp you in all 3 phases of the game. I'm thinking.
And remember, I put a prediction there. I think it was 24-21 on that game with the Falcons winning. So I said it should be a blowout, but it won't be because Atlanta likes playing these close games.
Right.
Well, I practically fell over dead with surprise. Now, I didn't watch that game. I only read box scores and whatnot. But I mean, I just. My jaw is still on the floor somewhere. That's probably why my tooth is hurting.
Yeah, it's not like a must-win game for them. I mean, they're a couple games up in the 1 spot. I think at the time they were 3 games up. So
Right.
it's almost impossible for them to lose the 1 spot now. You just have to win 1 game or 2, regardless of what everybody else does when they're in. So maybe they weren't as. I don't know what happened there, but they've got 2 tough games coming up. They've got the Giants this coming weekend and Tampa Bay to close the season. And Tampa Bay has been competitive.
Yeah.
Especially in the NFC side of things. They got Detroit in the middle, the Lions,
I'm thinking that Atlanta has a problem of, pride goeth before the fall. Like, for example, when they lost to New England, they were predicting a blowout. I'm sorry, not New England, New Orleans. They were predicting a blowout of that, and they themselves got their butts handed to them. So, I think that they are having an attitude problem right now. And it really makes me doubt how well they're going to hang through the playoffs.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think they're the strongest seed, but I don't think they're the strongest team in that division or in that conference. You cannot start reading your own press releases about how great you are. Right. I think you're right. That's where the Falcons are right now. As far as the rest of the AFC, San Francisco won its game against Miami pretty handily. Green Bay beat up on Detroit. New York Giants destroyed the Saints. And what we had the Saints is kind of the dark horse team, maybe to slide in. But with this loss, I think they are out. They're 5-8.
I don't really see how they can recover.
There's no closing unless everybody else falls apart. That's not going to happen. Chicago lost to Minnesota. We know those NFC North games are going to be tough, and that's not surprising to me at all.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you know what? I think I called that one for the Vikes as well.
Okay, yeah. The Vikes are kind of a sleeper team right now.
I really, though, see the Vikings on the NFC side being kind of spoilers, like I'm now seeing the Cleveland Browns. Neither team, I think, really has a chance of anchoring a spot in their respective wild card areas, but they do have a chance to make other people's lives miserable.
Absolutely, I agree. The game of the Birds, Hawks versus the Cardinals. That game, Seahawks. I think the Seahawks, like the Patriots, wanted to deliver a message because they did not let up either. I think that one's 52-0.
You know what? I'll tell you right now. This will not amount to a prediction, okay? But if Seattle ended up being in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be surprised. I actually put their chances of going to the Super Bowl at being about the same as the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. Well, I've got them. I think from last week set up at the 2 seed by the end of the season. I'm still sticking with that. They're strong.
I'll buy that.
They've got Buffalo, San Fran, and St. Louis coming up. They win 2 out of 3 of those easily. San Francisco game they could certainly be competitive at, and that could knock San Fran out of the 2 spot. Washington played a hard game against Baltimore. We knew they would. And again, they did great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, RG3 got hurt. But it's the Shanahan coaching staff, which means unless his leg is physically missing, he will be playing this Sunday. That's just how those guys work. So I expect to see him on the field. I don't think it's the right thing. But we're not the coaches, and we're not the league, so we have no say in it. Dallas beat Cincinnati in that ugly game, and the Dallas Cowboys are bragging a little bit about that, but they've got nothing to brag about this season. And I really thought Cincinnati should have won that. Tampa Bay lost to Philadelphia, which was a bit shocking. I thought Philadelphia is the second worst team in the league. Tampa's been playing for a spot, and that loss really hurts them. I don't think I just didn't play very well. Minnesota won against Chicago, so the NFC North dogfight continues. I'm just going to rattle on until you interrupt me.
Well, the funny thing about it is, in terms of the race for the kind of 4th, 5th, and 6th seeds in the NFC, at this point, the way that last weekend went, it seems like it's the pot full of crabs story. You know how the crabs never can get out of the pot because they're pulling pulling each other back down.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It's
horrible.
Yeah, I know. I
heard that before.
Well,
now I'm hungry for crab.
Yes, exactly. Butter. But the thing about it is, you're right. I mean, Tampa Bay should have won the game against Philadelphia, but they didn't. And so basically that pulled Tampa Bay basically out of contention in the same way that New Orleans is now out of contention.
Sure.
And I mean, I just don't really see this, and why did it happen that way? It shouldn't have happened that way. Really the better team didn't win.
You got to play hard in the stretch, and it just did not show up for that game. That's unfortunate. St. Louis, which is another dark horse team, they won against Buffalo. That's the only game I have them winning out of the next 4. They've got Minnesota, Tampa, and the Hawks. I think they zero those out and they're gone. So they'll finish pretty bad. And New Orleans, which really the Giants, again, that's an interesting game. The Giants showed up and said, "Here's how it's going to be," and they just completely had their way with the Saints. Another game where I don't think Drew Brees threw a touchdown. So, he had this really long streak that I think ended 3 weeks ago, and I don't think he's thrown a touchdown since. So now he's going the other streak. So, so the Saints are out. I think they had a bit of momentum going internally, but these last couple games have put them out of it.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in the New Orleans locker room. I'd like to hear what Drew Brees is saying, what their teammates are talking about. Because, I mean, he's a great quarterback. There's no doubt about it. I don't understand where the streak is coming from. Because, frankly, he hasn't really been a streaky quarterback.
No.
I mean, one of the things about him is his highs and his lows of his performance are pretty narrow.
He had 54 games with a touchdown pass.
Exactly.
Beat Johnny Unitas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, or 53. But regardless, yeah, so he's been a consistent guy. It's late in the season. There's a lot of game film now. Without Sean Payton, who is an underrated mastermind of football, I think all that's fine coming home to roost. Teams have figured them out, and now if I was New Orleans Saints, I would just play not to get people hurt and just wait for next season. It's obviously over, and they were crippled by the NFL, the league itself, from game one. So I don't think there's anything. I don't think anybody needs to start shouting at anybody at this in the Saints organization.
So speaking of, you said Peyton, and it reminded me of another interesting story: the firing of the offensive coordinator for Indianapolis, or
the Ravens.
Yes, I'm sorry. My tooth is. You like that dead air? That was kind of good.
That was not bad.
Dead air.
I think I saw the tooth fall out while you were.
Yes, exactly.
I need to get that looked at. So it was the Ravens. They fired him last week. I know. Quite frankly, I don't understand that move at all.
Oh no! I'm sorry. There is another story about about Indianapolis. They made a change.
Oh,
quarterback coach is now the. Oh no! You know what? Never mind. We'll have to. I'll pick this up in a text story on Sportishness.
Okay.
But anyway,
enough.
Yeah.
So so that's the short version of what's going on. In my mind, I mean, we got a lot. This week has a lot of tough games. Houston versus the Colts, Patriots, San Francisco, Baltimore, Denver, Atlanta versus the Giants. We already talked about that one. Green Bay versus Chicago, Dallas and Pitt, Tampa Bay, New Orleans.
I
so
think
there's still a lot of competitive games to play. The NFC, I think, can go any which way. I wouldn't bet on who's the number one seed in the NFC yet.
I really wouldn't either.
But I think the AFC, 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be set in stone pretty much by the end of this. The division winners and the order that the division winners are going to the playoffs are pretty much going to be done after this.
Well, in playing around with some calculations, I think that this weekend we're going to see whether it's going to be Pittsburgh or the Bengals that make it into that fifth wild card spot. That seems to be the biggest variable there. The way I got it figured is that that the Bengals have to win this next game in order to have any chance to surpass Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh is looking as wobbly as ever. So
they both play pretty straightforward teams. So they play Dallas. Pittsburgh does. I think that should be a win for them. And Cincinnati plays the Bengals, Cincinnati play. I'm going to go there. Cincinnati plays Philadelphia, and
the Cincinnati part of the team is going to play the Bengals part of the team.
One could say they were going to play themselves.
Right.
That's why I wasn't going to go,
yes.
But I went anyway.
Yes.
That's a Family Guy moment for sure. So I think both teams win this coming Sunday, but the week after they play each other.
Right.
And I think that's when it finally gets decided. Of course, Cincinnati's got to wrap up the season against the Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh has a nice, easy Browns. So even if Cincinnati beats Pittsburgh, but they lose to Baltimore, then they're back to the tiebreaker situation. So it could get ugly again. The Jets could sneak in with the easy schedule. They could just win all three of the next, let Cincinnati and Pittsburgh beat each other up once, and then hope the other team wins. The winner of that game loses one other, and then they're in the 6th seed. The Jets. Go TiVo. TiVo.
TiVo. TiVo.
Otherwise, I don't. We're still nothing. I don't think the story's changed much. Denver's still trying to get the 2 seed. NFC is a complete mess, and anybody can still go to get in. But I don't think there's a lot of quality teams there. But this week 15 is another great pre-off episode, if you will, or pre-off preview of what's going to go off on the playoffs. If Denver stays where it is, they will face the chance that they could face New England almost right away, second round. Nobody wants to face New England. So basically, you almost want to get seated as far away from New England as possible. And to do that, you have to be the seed above them or below them. So, yeah. So you really want to be, if New England gets the 2 seed, you want to be the 3. If they, and if you get the 2 and they're the 3, then you guys shouldn't face each other probably till the conference if you're lucky. But anything is possible because of the way the playoff system works.
I think that by the time we get through this weekend, actually through next Monday night's football, I think about 85 or 90% of the mystery of who's going to the playoffs and in what order is going to be sorted out. I mean, that's not to say that the last 2 weeks of the football season are going to be unimportant, but I think most of the mystery will be drained out of the entire race.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, like I said, we're going to try to keep this one short. I'm not sure how short we got it, but anyway, Jonathan.
All right, see you guys. Have good football.
Enjoy good football.